crap. Nothing but professionalism right here on Vinyl Power, people. That's right. There we go. Now we're in business. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Vinyl Power. That's right, the podcast where we talk about our love for vinyl records and share it with you. Join us each week as we bring you the latest in vinyl releases, what's in our vinyl collection, and wrap it up with EPIK Vinyl. That's right here, each and every week, with your hosts, the Reverend Jeff Kelly and Kurt Harris. Once again, welcome to Vinyl Power. Start off the show, why not? Hello, everybody. I am one of the hosts of this, and I am indeed the Reverend Jeff Kelly. And with me, far across the country in North Carolina, is Kurt, your friendly neighborhood music man. How are you doing this afternoon, Kurt, sir?
I am doing great, Reverend Jeff. Once again, excited and glad to be here on a Thursday night, rolling in with Vinyl Power. We've got the music to soothe the savage beast and to bring the beast up and those that have been soothed a little too much.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it does. It's funny how music can definitely adjust your mood. Speaking of things that are going to be adjusting your mood, let's talk about what we talk about at the beginning of every show. That's these vinyl releases that are getting reissued coming up tomorrow, September 22nd. Avril Lavigne. Yeah, I know that ain't right. I don't care. He's got a triple reissue coming out. The Best Damn Thing, Let Go, and Under My Skin. Christina Aguilera, I Don't Want to Be Your Kid's Role Model, is reissuing ST. And Elton John has a triple re-release coming out. Blues Moves, Empty Sky, and The Big Picture. All three of those are great albums. So Isaac Hayes, there's the one boy. The Spirit of Memphis. All of those are coming out tomorrow. And if you're part of any of the Facebook user groups for the vinyl community, you'll see that all of those people will be posting those records in those groups that they're spinning, because somehow they arrive in their mailboxes tomorrow. So if you haven't got your copy, you can go out there and order them first thing tomorrow. I guess they're part of the club. Is that how that works, Kurt? I guess there's a club you can belong to that all the reissues come, and it's like the old record club. You can tell them no. You know, tell them no thank you, or make a different selection, but they have a record of the club reissues that always seem to come out.
Yeah, I believe that's exactly right. It's like the old CBS Records Club. I believe I belong to that, or Columbia Records, and you would get, what was it, like 11 records for a penny, and then you would get you'd buy your 3 records, you would cancel, and turn right around, order 11 more for a penny.
We lived in a multi-family unit, but all the mailboxes came into one mailbox. So I was a member with a slightly different name at 4 different addresses to the same mailbox. Oh, it was ridiculous the amount of cassette tapes that would come in my name. My mother was like, oh, that's what you do with all your money. Okay, that's right, people. Get your children involved in collecting vinyl and tapes. They won't have money for drugs. That's how that works. Cars, too. That definitely works for cars.
I love it.
Hey, I got to ask you, Kurt, what were you spinning this week on your turntable, man? What's in your vinyl?
Well, I'll tell you what, it was a great week of vinyl records. And the first thing I have to say about it was there was a little bit of a theme this week, and it was first records, first releases by either solo artists or bands. And one of the first that I was spinning this week was the 1967 release by Traffic, their first ever release. It's the US version. Now, this was only on the very first pressing, this title, Heaven is in Your Mind. The actual title in the UK and on later pressings was Mr. Fantasy. This also has the US track listing, which is a bit different than the UK track listing. And as you might or might not know, Stevie Winwood is a big part of Traffic, but also Dave Mason was there. The great Dave Mason was there in the beginning, and he left 3 weeks before this album actually hit the store shelves. So
screw you guys, I'm going home.
He took his guitar and his harmonica and he went home. Went on to a great career, but it's a fantastic first album. This is actually, and it's one of the few I own like this. I specifically got the original mono version, so it's not even stereo, but it sounds great. It's fun to listen to. It's a very calming record.
A lot of audiophiles will tell you if you can get it in the mono version, that's what you should listen to it in, because that's what it was probably originally recorded in. I don't know. I'm not one of them file snobs, but I love to listen to records.
Well, I know a lot of people do say that about the original Beatles recordings that were in mono. They'd rather hear them in mono than stereo. I personally have the stereo ones, but this is one of the few that I did get in mono. So that's where I started the week. And when I moved on from there, I went to 1978. And this is the very first David Gilmour solo record. Was released on the Harvest label. And it's not Pink Floyd. Which in a way is a good thing, because you didn't need more of the same thing out of his solo record. It has a little hint of that, but it's really an excellent blues-based record. And if you're a fan of David Gilmour, if you're a fan of his contributions to Pink Floyd throughout the years, you're going to love this record. It's one I highly recommend. He's only put out a few solo records in his career, which is kind of interesting. And as far as I'm concerned, anyways, in my opinion, this is by far the best one he ever put out. So again. Wow. Another number one, and continuing with that theme this week, is the first ever David Crosby solo record. Now, as many people know, David Crosby, you would know him from Crosby, Stills and Nash, obviously, and Young. But also, he came over from the Byrds. And after the
the Surfing Birds, not to be confused.
The Surfing Birds. No. But the Byrds with a Y. He came over from the Byrds, and joined Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. Young came later. Young was the second album. So Crosby, Stills, and Nash, the first album, Deja Vu, it was a hit. Basically, all the members put out solo records after that first album dropped, and this was David's. On this record,
which I think was very smart of the whole group.
Oh, I mean, I couldn't agree more.
They were smashing it after the first group album was released in that tour, and that's when the solo albums came out directly after, and they were already on the highlight of the media. Ride that wave as quickly as you can, people. Lesson learned.
Absolutely. And the great thing about one of the many great things about this record is the fact of how many people are contributing with David. You've got members of the Grateful Dead, Santana, Jefferson Airplane, and Joni Mitchell, all on this record. It's recorded with the QSM process, which is very highly regarded for audio purity. And I would say that the reason I know about this album is the artist Steven Wilson lists this as one of his all-time favorite records. So 1971, David Crosby, first ever solo record. Continuing on with the theme of number one, we get to, a first Bad Company record.
That's
now,
right.
most everybody who has a little bit of age on, and maybe a little tinge of gray in their beard or hair somewhere, and grew up listening to FM radio, has probably heard basically every song on this record. This was the 1973 and the first record released on Led Zeppelin's Swan Song label.
Which is very cool, because that was the first group that ever said, screw you record producing companies, we're going on our own.
And they did, and they were successful, and they signed and released Bad Company. They were managed by Led Zeppelin's manager, Peter Grant. And personally, for my money, Paul Rodgers' vocals are as good as it gets in rock music. I think he's one of the best rock music frontmen of all time. For me, he's at least in the top three. So a great record. Every song on it was basically, was an FM radio sensation. And again, a number one, the first record, continuing with the theme of this week. And I have to ask you, Reverend Jeff,
Yeah.
what EPIK Vinyls have you been listening to this week?
Oh, well, the Rev got out some really good stuff. I actually found some really great stuff at the shop this week. I did a record shop finds with the Rev earlier in the week. If you haven't seen that, you should probably go out and check that one out. But Pat Benatar, oh yeah, man. I mean, you can't go wrong. All fired up, one love. Let's stay together. Don't walk away. I mean, it's one of those ones you forget about. Wide Awake in Dreamland, but it's one you should probably have if you're a Chicks of Rock fan. At least I am. I love Chicks of Rock. You know, Blondie, I used to think she rocked a whole lot harder than she really did. She's really only got a couple of really decent rock songs, but she's still a lady of rock. I pulled out some sticks. That's right, the Cornerstone album. I knew all the songs on it. I just didn't recognize them by name when I was looking at it at the shop. But of course, no sticks left behind. I didn't have it in my collection, so it had to be done. You know,
a great album,
just
a must-have in your collection. Cornerstone, a cornerstone
Absolutely.
of a collection.
Cornerstone of the sticks collection is Cornerstone. Then I pulled this one out of my trapster. That's right, the Fine Young Cannibals. No, this does not have the song you're thinking of on it, but it is down to this week's theme. It is their studio debut album. I like debut albums. I was talking to Kurt earlier in the week. One of the reasons that I like debut albums is simply because you understand what the band was meant to be, not necessarily what they became. Their studio debut is usually their first shot at, this is the best we got at this point. Bam! In your face, like it or not. Well, a lot of times they go different directions after that studio debut because it didn't do all that hot. But, you know, one of my favorite bands of all times, of course, wrapping what I was listening to was the Eagles live. This is the 1980 version that has every song you ever wanted to hear by the Eagles, and probably the best live cut of them. I have all three of the Eagles live records. I have volume 1, which is not actually volume 1, but I have volume 2, which isn't actually volume 2 either. And now I have the Eagles live from 1980. So I have all three of the live albums. I'm sorry. The other two were greatest hits. I lied. This is the only live album that I have because it's the only one that they have. Anyhow, if you don't have this in your Eagles collection, go get it. It's literally like being at the concert. Well, even on my crappy player. Which, speaking of my crappy player, I'm in the midst of finally upgrading. We've been talking about that this week as well. Yes, sir. Looking at that Sansui receiver and a couple of period speakers to go along with it, and a new turntable to go on the Rev's desk, because it's time to stop punishing my vinyl. That's for sure. If you've got a ceramic cartridge machine, please don't abuse your vinyl. Just don't do it. It's not worth it. I learned the hard way. Anyhow, hey, Kurt, I got to ask you, buddy, what EPIK vinyl did you bring along with you this week? Oh, wait, before we do that, I'm sorry. Let's go out and say hi to our couple of fans that's out there grooving in the chat room for us. Let's see who's hanging out live with us tonight. Rod Dupree. He's first, he reckons, and he would be right. Drummer Forever 69, that's right, Gary and Whitney White, the truckers, they're out there bringing food to America's table. And I'm going to say hi to Cassie, and I'm going to say hi to Christopher, because I know in Starshine, she'll be out there eventually, Collier, and Mr. Diener Wiener, the pumpkin eater. That's right. Hello, everybody. Glad
rocking along with us.
So glad you could be here on Vinyl Power. Let's get back to it, Kurt. I got to ask you once more, what EPIK record did you bring along with you this week?
Well, does it get more epic than the first Led Zeppelin record? Oh, come on. 1969. I'll go into a little bit of the history of this record. Jimmy Page joins the Yardbirds. The Yardbirds disband. Jimmy Page is left sitting alone with a contract to tour Scandinavia and no band. Who does he call? How about Robert Plant, John Paul Jones, and John Bonham? Not a bad couple phone calls to make, is it? Puts those three together, and they tour Scandinavia as the new Yardbirds, playing Yardbirds music and a few new cuts that they worked on and rehearsed on. Well, they talking with John Entwistle and Keith Moon, and all kind of ideas are flying all over the place about what they're going to do. Is there going to be a new Yardbirds? Are they going to move over from the Who? Are they going to put together a new supergroup? Well, as they're talking, John Entwistle and Keith Moon are saying, I don't know if this is going to go over very well. And John Entwistle said, I think it's going to go over like a lead balloon. And Keith Moon said, probably a Led Zeppelin. And the name was born. And so Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones, Robert Plant, and John Bonham got together, went into the studio. This is on Atlantic Records. They spent about 36 hours in the studio itself. Jimmy Page produced the album, and he used new techniques that had never been used before, not only close miking the instruments like the drums or his amplifier, but also setting another microphone about 20 feet away, and then achieving a balance between the two in the mix to give a sense of depth and size to the music. So Jimmy Page, an absolute genius, and he really was the bones that put together this first record. And everything from what I believe with the name of the band and this cover, which as far as I'm concerned was the perfect cover for the first Led Zeppelin album. I just think this is one of the most epic opening records for any band in history. And obviously it set the stage for Led Zeppelin to be the premier hard rock band of the 1970s until, of course, unfortunately, the loss of John Bonham, maybe one of the top 3 drummers in the history of rock music. And they basically disbanded. But this is where it started. And as for me, this is as epic as any record I could bring to vinyl power. So I'm very happy to present it here today. And after saying that, I have to ask you, Reverend Jeff, what is your epic vinyl record for this Thursday?
Well, I had to pull it out, of course. You know, I pulled these ones from the store this week. Ozzy Osbourne's Blizzard of Oz. That's right. The premiere of Ozzy sans the Sabbath. It is the debut studio album by British heavy metal vocalist Ozzy Osbourne. That's right. Don't ever call him hairband. Ever. Okay? Just don't do it. We'll like gut you if you do.
Don't do it.
That's right. This one came out in September of 1980 in the UK and didn't come out until March of 81 in the US. The first release following the 1979 firing from Black Sabbath. That's right. They're like, Ozzy, you're too drunk all the time. Get out. And Ozzy's like, yeah, but drunk's where I get my muse. Let me show you how it's done. And he did. I mean, it was like, where did Sabbath go after Ozzy left? Bueller.
I won't discount Ronnie James Dio and the 2 albums with Dio, but you can't replace an Ozzy Osbourne.
No, you can't replace. You definitely can't replace Ozzy. Now, much of the album was written by the guitarist Randy Rhoads, the bassist Bob Daisley, and Ozzy Osbourne in a live-in rehearsal facility in Monmouth, Wales. And a friend of Osbourne's named Barry Scrennage was performing as the group's drummer, but he sucked, so they didn't plan on him being the permanent drummer ever. Hello, Seamus. That's my bird. He's getting pretty sick of it. Anyhow, the tracks that are just most famous on this thing are going to be Crazy Train, down. Oh, wait, that's all copyrighted. We can't do that. That's right. Mr. Crowley was the second release. You said it all. Yeah, released in 1980. And overall, it's on the Jet record label, which, you know, it's one out of my collection. I think I have 2 records on Jet, and they're both Ozzy Osbourne records. So I'm not real sure how many other artists they had on the Jet record label. I'm sure you audiophiles out there will be able to tell me. But honestly, I picked up this one and the other one, The Diary of a Madman. And those are the quintessential Ozzy Osbourne albums to own. The others are good. I mean, don't get me wrong, but if you really want the hardest rockin' Ozzy before he was just demented and just too far gone, then You know, this one and Diary of a Madman is probably where you want to stop.
Completely.
With that, honestly, though, yeah, I mean, you can't. This isn't hair metal. This isn't glam metal. This is the one of the guys that just tried to stay true to everything that was going on prior to 1980 and didn't want to get wrapped up in all the glam, gory was going on. Hey, let's put on makeup, spandex, and call ourselves Poison. You know, and I just don't think that that Ozzy was really all down with that. Oh, look at that. It's the sad going away music. What do you know? Yeah, I want to thank everybody for being out there today. Kurt, thank you so much for being here with us. You know, it's awesome. If you've got your favorite album, you can get a hold of us at Facebook.com/Vinyl Power Podcast. That goes right to the page. You can leave us a message there. You can send us a link. Find one of us on Facebook, and we'll make you part of the show as well. If you are a budding artist or a new release coming out and you've got a record, contact us as well. You could be featured right here on Vinyl Power as well. We're out there on Twitter. Vinyl Powercast, I'm pretty sure is what it is. And you can definitely find us on YouTube because that's where you're watching this. Next week, right here, Vinyl Power, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And that is that. Keep your vinyl off the floor. Keep your stylus cool.